Most women rage when they discover the betrayal. They scream, throw glassware across marble countertops, demand explanations through tears that smudge expensive mascara. But Victoria Hayes did none of those things. When she found the hotel receipt tucked inside her husband's jacket pocket, a weekend getaway she knew nothing about, she simply folded it carefully, placed it back exactly where she'd found it, and walked to her closet. She packed methodically. One black suitcase, one leather carry-on. She didn't take the jewelry he'd given her on their anniversary. She didn't take the designer handbags that filled an entire wall of their penthouse. She took only what had belonged to her before the marriage: her grandmother's pearl earrings, 3 photographs of her mother, and a worn leather journal filled with her own handwriting. What Robert didn't know, what nobody in their elite Manhattan social circle could possibly know, was that Victoria Hayes wasn't just a wealthy man's discarded wife. She was something far more dangerous. And the encrypted phone that buzzed in her coat pocket wasn't a friend checking in. It was her handler. The message was brief: package ready for extraction. Monaco, 48 hours. She looked one last time at the life she was leaving behind. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The abstract art that cost more than most people's homes. The silence of a marriage that had died long before she'd found the receipt. Then she walked out the door. She didn't look back, because what Robert Hayes didn't realize was that his infidelity hadn't broken her heart. It had freed her, and the woman boarding a private jet to the Mediterranean wasn't running away from anything. She was running toward everything she'd been trained to do. The penthouse apartment smelled of expensive leather and old money. Victoria stood in the master bedroom, the afternoon light cutting sharp angles across the cream-colored carpet. She'd lived here for 6 years. She'd never once felt at home. Robert was in his study, door closed, voice muffled but animated. He was laughing. She recognized that laugh, the one he used to use with her, back when she'd been new and exciting instead of convenient and forgettable. She moved quietly to his jacket, hanging on the back of a dining room chair. The receipt was in the inside pocket, just where the dry cleaner's ticket usually lived. The Gramercy Hotel, presidential suite, 3 nights. Champagne service, couples massage. She'd been in Chicago at her father's funeral during those 3 nights. Victoria didn't cry. She'd been trained not to. Instead, she photographed the receipt with a camera so small it looked like a lipstick tube, then replaced it exactly as she'd found it. Evidence. Always. Collect evidence. She walked to the bedroom and opened the hidden compartment in the back of her closet, a space Robert had never discovered in 6 years of marriage. Inside was a go bag. Cash in 3 currencies. 4 passports, all legitimate, all under different names. A Sig Sauer 9mm pistol she'd never had to use. And the encrypted phone that connected her to a life Robert knew nothing about. The phone buzzed. A single message. "Are you ready?" She typed back. Confirmed. The response was immediate. Target is Damien Cross. Billionaire. Arms dealer. Art collector. Currently docked in Monaco. You'll pose as a restoration specialist. Your mission is to locate and photograph the contents of his private vault. Duration: 2 weeks. Extraction available on command. Victoria memorized the message, then deleted it. She'd known this was coming. She'd been embedded in Robert's world for 6 years, gathering intelligence on his investment firm's connections to offshore money laundering. That mission was complete. This was her reward or her punishment, depending on how she looked at it. A real assignment. A dangerous one. She began to pack. Not the designer clothes Robert had bought her, but the carefully curated wardrobe she'd maintained separately. Classic pieces that could blend into any wealthy environment without drawing attention. Neutral colors. Expensive fabrics. Nothing memorable. She heard Robert's study door open. His footsteps approached. "Victoria?" His voice carried that familiar tone of mild irritation. "Where are you?" She stepped out of the closet, suitcase in hand. He stopped, stared. "What are you doing?" "Leaving," she said simply. His face cycled through confusion, then dismissal. "Leaving? What are you talking about?" "We have the Rothschild Gala tonight. You'll have to go alone." "This is ridiculous." He laughed, but it was forced. "You're being dramatic. Is this about me working late?" "I told you, the merger requires." "I found the receipt, Robert." The color drained from his face. Just for a moment. Then the mask returned, the one he wore in boardrooms, the one that had convinced her 6 years ago that he was someone worth loving. "I don't know what you think you found." The Gramercy. 3 nights. While I was burying my father. Silence. Then, predictably, he attacked. "You went through my pockets? What are you, a jealous housewife?" "You have no right." "I have every right," she said quietly. "But it doesn't matter anymore. I'm done." "Done?" He laughed bitterly. "You're done? Victoria, you have nothing without me. No career, no income. This apartment is in my name. The car is in my name. Your credit cards are connected to my accounts. You walk out that door, you're walking into poverty." She looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just a distant clinical observation. He was exactly who she'd always known he was. She'd just been playing a role for so long she'd almost forgotten it was an act. "Goodbye, Robert." She walked past him. He grabbed her arm. "Victoria, wait. Let's talk about this. We can work it out. Counseling, whatever you need." She looked at his hand on her arm, then at his face. "Let go." Something in her voice made him release her immediately. She walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and stepped inside. The doors closed on Robert's stunned face, his mouth opening to say something, an apology. Another threat she'd never know. The elevator descended. 42 floors. With each floor, she felt lighter dawn by the time she reached the lobby. Victoria Hayes, investment banker's wife, charity gala organizer, Upper East Side socialite, had ceased to exist. The woman who stepped onto the Manhattan street was someone else entirely, and she had a plane to catch. The private jet was waiting at Teterboro Airport. Small, sleek, registered to a corporation that didn't exist. Victoria showed her passport, one of the fake ones. This time she was Catherine Wells, art consultant, and was waved through without questions. Inside, the cabin was empty except for one man. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and the kind of face that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. He wore an expensive suit, but sat like someone who'd spent years in far less comfortable places. "Miss Wells," he said, not standing. "Or should I call you Victoria? Or perhaps Agent Hayes?" "Catherine is fine," she said, taking the seat across from him. "Marcus Reeves," he said. "I'm your handler for this operation. You'll report directly to me." She studied him. "I thought Henderson was my handler." "Henderson is retired. Heart attack 3 weeks ago." Reeves opened a leather folder. "Which brings me to the difficult part of this conversation. The mission parameters have changed." Victoria's instincts flared. "Changed how?" "Damien Cross isn't just an arms dealer anymore. Intelligence suggests he's brokering a sale of stolen nuclear material, uranium, enough to build a dirty bomb. We need to know who's buying and when the exchange is happening. That's not what I was briefed for. I'm briefing you now." She leaned back, processing. If Cross is dealing nuclear material, this isn't a 2-week reconnaissance mission. This is a federal case. Why isn't the CIA handling it? Because Cross operates outside every jurisdiction. He lives on a yacht. No permanent residence. No nationality we can pin down. The yacht is registered in Liberia. His money moves through 12 countries. He's a ghost. And you want me to what? Seduce him? Steal the uranium? Neither. We want you to get inside his vault. Photograph his records. Find out who he's meeting and when. Then we extract you and move in with an international task force. And if I'm caught? Reeves didn't blink. You're a private art consultant who got hired through legitimate channels. You have no connection to any government agency. We disavow all knowledge. In other words, I'm expendable. In other words, you're a professional. And this is what you signed up for. She wanted to argue, but he was right. 6 years ago, when she'd agreed to embed herself in Robert's world, she'd known what she was choosing. A life of lies. A life of masks. A life where nobody, not even her husband, knew who she really was. What's my cover story? Reeves slid a file across the table. You're Catherine Wells, formerly with Christie's Auction House, specializing in Renaissance art. You recently authenticated a stolen Caravaggio, the cross-bought for $30 million. He was impressed. He's hiring you to catalog and restore his private collection. And if he runs a background check? Your background is airtight. We've been building Catherine Wells for 3 years. She has a credit history, tax returns, social media presence, professional references. She's real. Except she's not. Except she's not, Reeves agreed. But Cross won't know that. He's arrogant. He believes money and power make him untouchable. Victoria opened the file. Inside was a photograph of Damien Cross. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, with dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that looked like they could calculate your net worth in seconds. Tell me about him. Brilliant, ruthless. Started in tech. His first $100 million by 25. Transitioned into private equity, then arms dealing. He doesn't sell to governments. He sells to whoever pays. Warlords, cartels, terrorist organizations. He's responsible for at least 4 regional conflicts we know about. And he collects art? Obsessively. His yacht has a collection worth over $200 million. Mostly stolen or acquired through black market channels. He sees himself as a modern Medici, a patron of beauty in an ugly world. How romantic. Reeves didn't smile. Don't underestimate him, Victoria. He's killed people. Personally. He's not some soft billionaire playing gangster. He's the real thing. She studied the photograph. There was something in Cross's eyes, a coldness, yes, but also intelligence. This wasn't a man who made mistakes. When do I start? You're scheduled to arrive in Monaco tomorrow morning. A car will take you to the marina. Cross's yacht is called the Midnight. You'll meet him at noon. You have 2 weeks before he sails for Istanbul. That's where we believe the uranium exchange is happening. 2 weeks to find evidence of nuclear trafficking. That's not a lot of time. It's what we have. After Istanbul, he disappears for months. This is our window. Victoria closed the file. What about extraction? If things go wrong, how do I get out? Reeves reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. It looked like an expensive watch. This is a GPS beacon with an encrypted distress signal. Press and hold the crown for 5 seconds. We'll have a team to your location within the hour. And if I'm underwater? The yacht is at sea? Then you'll have to get to shore first. She took the watch, fastened it around her wrist. It was heavier than it looked. One more thing, Reeves said. Cross has a head of security. Former Mossad. Woman named Kira Volkov. She's ex-Russian intelligence, suspected of at least a dozen assassinations. She vets everyone who comes near Cross. If she suspects you're not who you say you are, you won't make it off the yacht alive. Good to know. I'm serious, Victoria. This isn't a game. Henderson thought this was a routine intelligence op. That's why he assigned you. But it's escalated. If you want out, say so now. She thought about Robert. About the penthouse. About 6 years of pretending to be someone she wasn't, only to discover her husband was pretending too. I'm in, she said. Good. Reeves stood. There's a bedroom in the back. Get some rest. We land in 8 hours. He moved toward the cockpit, then paused. Victoria, one more thing. Cross is charming, magnetic. Women fall for him constantly. Don't be one of them, I won't. I've heard that before. He disappeared into the cockpit, leaving her alone with the file, the photograph, and the weight of what she'd just agreed to do. She looked out the window. Manhattan was already far behind, a glittering grid of lights fading into darkness. She was flying towards something dangerous, something that could kill her. And for the first time in 6 years, she felt completely, terrifyingly alive. Monaco gleamed in the morning sun like a jewel box that had been polished too many times. Victoria, now Catherine Wells, stood at the edge of Port Hercules, watching the yachts bob gently in the crystalline water. They were monuments to excess, sleek, massive, each one trying to outdo the next. But the Midnight was different. It wasn't the largest yacht in the harbor. It was the darkest. Matte black from bow to stern, with tinted windows that revealed nothing. It didn't look like wealth. It looked like power. A man in a crisp white uniform approached her. Miss Wells? Yes, please follow me. He led her to a tender, a smaller boat, used to ferry people to and from the yachts. The ride was brief, but disorienting. As they approached the Midnight, Victoria felt the scale of it. 5 decks. A helicopter pad. Security cameras everywhere. They docked at a platform that lowered from the yacht's side. The crew member helped her aboard, then immediately disappeared. She was alone on the deck. The space was immaculate. Teak wood floors. Chrome railings. Not a single thing out of place. It felt less like a yacht and more like a floating fortress. Miss Wells. She turned. The woman who stood behind her was tall, blonde, with features that looked carved from ice. She wore black tactical pants, a fitted black shirt, and an expression that suggested she'd killed people before breakfast. I'm Kira Volkov, the woman said. Her accent was Russian, but polished. Head of security. I'll need to see your identification. Victoria handed over her passport. Kira examined it with the intensity of someone trained to spot forgeries. Then she pulled out a small tablet and scanned the passport's chip. Catherine Wells, 42, born in Boston. Educated at Yale. Previously employed by Christie's auction house. Kira looked up. Why did you leave Christie's? Victoria had rehearsed this. Creative differences. I wanted more autonomy in my restorations. The corporate structure was limiting. And you freelance now? I do. Kira handed back the passport. Mr. Cross values privacy. While you're aboard, you will not photograph anything. You will not discuss his collection with anyone outside this vessel. You will not enter areas you haven't been explicitly cleared for. Do you understand? Completely. Good, follow me. Kira led her through a corridor paneled in dark wood. They passed several crew members, each one nodding respectfully to Kira, each one avoiding eye contact with Victoria. They took an elevator to the upper deck. The doors opened into a gallery. Victoria stopped breathing. The space was breathtaking. Skylights flooded the room with natural light. Along the walls hung masterpieces. A Monet, a Rothko, a Vermeer she recognized from an Interpol missing art bulletin. Each piece was museum quality. Each piece was worth millions. Impressive, isn't it? She turned. Damien Cross stood in the doorway. He was taller than she'd expected, dressed casually in linen pants and a white shirt. But there was nothing casual about the way he watched her. His eyes were dark, intelligent, and absolutely predatory. "Mr. Cross," she said, extending her hand. "Catherine Wells, thank you for the opportunity." He shook her hand. His grip was firm, confident. The Caravaggio authentication was extraordinary work. "You identified details even the Getty missed. I've spent my career studying Italian Baroque. Caravaggio's brushwork is distinctive once you know what to look for. And now I want you to look at my collection." He gestured to the gallery. 30 years of acquisition. Some pieces legally obtained. Others, less so. I need someone who can not only authenticate, but restore. Can you do that? Yes. Excellent. We'll show you to your quarters. Dinner is at 8. We'll discuss terms then. He turned to leave, then paused. "Catherine, one thing. I don't tolerate lies. If you're not who you say you are, I'll know. And you won't enjoy the consequences." He smiled. It was charming and terrifying in equal measure. Then he was gone. Kira led her to a cabin on the 3rd deck. It was larger than Victoria's first apartment had been: king bed, private bathroom, a balcony overlooking the sea. "Your access code is 7932, Kira said. "Meals are served in the main dining room. If you need anything, use the intercom. Don't wander. The yacht has restricted areas. If you enter one, you'll be removed from the vessel immediately. Understood?" Kira left. Victoria sat on the bed, her heart racing. She'd made it aboard. That was step 1. But Cross's warning echoed in her mind. "I don't tolerate lies, Dot." She thought about the watch on her wrist, the emergency beacon. She could trigger it right now. Walk away. Tell Reeves the mission was too dangerous. But she didn't. She'd spent 6 years being someone's wife, playing a role, pretending. This was different. This was the real her. The version of herself she'd trained to be. She stood, walked to the balcony, and looked out at the harbor. Monaco glittered in the distance. Beautiful and untouchable Dot. Just like the man who owned this yacht, Dot, and just like her. He was hiding something. She just had to figure out what it was before he figured out what she was. Dinner was served in a dining room that looked like it belonged in a palace. Crystal chandeliers. A table that could seat 20. Victoria Catherine sat across from Damian Cross, acutely aware that Kira stood near the door, watching every movement. "Tell me, Catherine," Cross said, pouring wine into her glass, "what draws you to restoration?" Most art historians want glory, publications, museum retrospectives. But you seem to prefer the shadows. She'd prepared for this question. "I don't care about glory. I care about preservation. These pieces are centuries old. Without proper care, they'll crumble into dust. I see myself as a custodian, not a celebrity." He smiled. A noble answer. "But I don't believe it." Her pulse quickened, but she kept her face neutral. "What do you believe?" "I believe you're running from something. Or someone." He leaned back, studying her. "You left Christie suddenly. No public explanation. You've kept a low profile since. And now you're accepting a job that requires you to live on a yacht for 2 weeks, isolated from the world. That's not the behavior of someone who loves their work. That's the behavior of someone who needs to disappear." She met his gaze. "Maybe I needed a change, or maybe you're hiding." He sipped his wine. "I'm not judging, Catherine. I respect people who know how to vanish when necessary. In fact, I prefer them. They're less likely to ask inconvenient questions. I'm not here to ask questions. I'm here to work. Good, because I have a particular project for you. Something that requires discretion." He gestured to Kira, who approached with a tablet. She placed it on the table in front of Victoria. On the screen was an image of a painting. It showed a woman in Renaissance dress, holding a skull. The colors were dark, rich, haunting. "This," Cross said, "is the Penitent Magdalene by Artemisia Gentileschi, stolen from a private collector in Florence 30 years ago. I acquired it last month for 12 million. Victoria recognized it immediately. It was on every stolen art watch list in the world. "It's magnificent," she said carefully. "It's damaged. Look closer." She zoomed in. There was water damage along the bottom edge, likely from improper storage. The canvas was buckling. Without treatment, it would deteriorate within a year. "You want me to restore it. I want you to make it perfect. As if it had never been stolen. As if it had been cared for all these years." He paused. "And I want you to do it without anyone knowing it's here." She understood. He wasn't just asking her to restore a painting. He was asking her to become complicit in its concealment. "This will take time. Weeks, possibly months." "You have 2 weeks," Cross said. "We sail for Istanbul in 14 days. I need it finished before then." "That's not enough time to—" "2 weeks, Catherine. Or I find someone else." She looked at Kira, whose expression revealed nothing. Then back at Cross. "I'll need specialized materials. UV lights, chemical solvents, access to a proper workspace. You'll have everything you need. Kira will set you up in the lower deck restoration lab. It's climate-controlled, soundproofed. No one will disturb you. And the payment? 500,000. Deposited in whatever account you prefer. Offshore, if necessary. $500,000 to restore a stolen masterpiece in 2 weeks. It was an impossible timeline, which meant Cross didn't actually care about the restoration. He cared about keeping her busy, keeping her contained, keeping her in one place where he could watch her. She smiled. "I'll start tomorrow." "Excellent." He stood, signaling the end of dinner. "Kira will escort you to the lab in the morning. Sleep well, Catherine. You'll need your strength." As she left the dining room, Victoria's mind raced. The restoration lab would be on the lower deck, exactly where Reeves said Cross's vault was located. If she could access the lab, she might be able to explore the restricted areas. But first, she had to survive Kira's scrutiny. That night, Victoria lay in bed, listening to the gentle rocking of the yacht. She couldn't sleep. Her mind kept returning to Cross's words. "I don't tolerate lies." She got up, walked to the balcony. The moon cast a silver path across the water. Monaco's lights twinkled in the distance. She thought about Robert, about the life she'd left behind. It felt like a dream now distant, unreal. She wondered if he'd tried to call, if he'd reported her missing, or if he'd simply moved on, found someone new to fill the space she'd occupied. It didn't matter anymore. This was her life now. Not pretending to be a wife. Not pretending to be normal. This was who she really was. A woman who could lie so convincingly that even she sometimes forgot the truth. A sound behind her made her turn. Kira stood in the doorway of her cabin. "You should be asleep," Victoria said. "I wanted to talk, privately." Kira stepped onto the balcony. Up close, she was even more intimidating, tall, muscular, with scars visible on her forearms. "About what?" "About you." Kira's eyes were cold. "I've worked for Mr. Cross for 8 years. I've seen dozens of people come aboard this yacht. Consultants, dealers, collectors. Most of them are greedy. Some are stupid. A few are dangerous. But you?" She tilted her head. "You're different. I'm just an art restorer." "No, you're not." Kira moved closer. "You don't react like a civilian. When I scanned your passport, you didn't fidget. When Mr. Cross threatened you, you didn't flinch. That's training. Professional training." Victoria's hand moved instinctively toward the watch, the emergency beacon. But Kira was faster. She grabbed Victoria's wrist, holding it in an iron grip. "Don't," Kira said quietly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to warn you." "Warn me about what?" "Mr. Cross is not what he appears. He's brilliant, yes. Charming, yes. But he's also paranoid. He trusts no one. If he even suspects you're lying, he will make you disappear. And I won't be able to stop him." "Why are you telling me this?" Kira released her wrist. "Because I see something in you, strength, purpose. I don't want to see it wasted." She stepped back. "Whatever you're really here for, Catherine, or whoever you are, finish it quickly and leave. Before he figures out you're not who you say you are." She walked to the door, then paused. "And if you get caught, I won't help you. I can't. Do you understand?" Victoria nodded. Kira disappeared into the corridor, leaving Victoria alone with the moon and the weight of a warning she couldn't ignore. She looked at her wrist, at the watch, at the button that would end this mission and save her life. But she didn't press it. Not yet, because somewhere on this yacht was evidence of nuclear trafficking. And if she walked away now, people would die. She'd made a choice 6 years ago, when she'd agreed to this life, and she was going to see it through. The restoration lab was hidden in the yacht's lower deck, accessible only by a secure elevator that required biometric scanning. Kira escorted Victoria down the next morning, her hand never far from the weapon, holstered at her hip. The space was exactly what Cross had promised: climate-controlled, filled with professional-grade equipment, and completely isolated. The walls were soundproofed. There were no windows. It felt less like a workshop and more like a tomb. The penitent Magdalene hung on an easel in the center of the room, illuminated by soft LED lights. Up close, the damage was worse than Victoria had thought. The water stains had penetrated deep into the canvas. Restoration would take months, not weeks. But that wasn't why she was really here. "Do you need anything else?" Kira asked from the doorway. "No, thank you. I'll check on you at noon. Don't leave this room without clearance." The door closed with a heavy metallic click. Victoria heard the lock engage. She was sealed in. She worked on the painting for 3 hours, carefully cleaning the surface, removing centuries of grime and oxidized varnish. It was meditative work, the kind that required absolute focus. But her mind was elsewhere. The vault had to be somewhere on this deck. Reeves's intel suggested it was behind a false wall, accessible through hidden mechanisms. But where? At noon, Kira returned with lunch. "Progress?" "Slow. The damage is extensive. Mr. Cross wants an update tonight. Tell him I need at least another week." Kira nodded and left. Locking the door again, Victoria ate quickly, then began her real work. She searched the lab methodically, running her hands along the walls, checking for seams, listening for hollow spaces. She found nothing. Then she noticed the air vent. It was larger than it needed to be. And unlike the others, it wasn't screwed in. It was held in place by magnets. She removed the grate and looked inside. The vent shaft was large enough for a person to crawl through. And more importantly, it led somewhere. She hesitated. This was the moment. If she entered that vent, she was crossing a line. There would be no explaining it away if she was caught. But this was what she'd come here to do. She climbed inside. The shaft was dark, narrow, and disorienting. She used her phone's flashlight to navigate, crawling through the metal tunnel, trying not to make noise. After 20 meters, the shaft branched. She chose the left path toward the center of the yacht, where the vault would logically be located. She reached another grate. Through it, she could see a room. It was small, concrete-walled, with a massive steel door. The vault. And standing in front of it was Cross. He wasn't alone. A man in an expensive suit stood with him, middle-aged, Middle Eastern, with the cold eyes of someone accustomed to violence. "The payment cleared this morning," the man said. $600 million. I trust the merchandise is ready? Cross smiled. It's ready, but I want to see the buyer first. I don't deal with intermediaries. The buyer values anonymity, and I value accountability. No face-to-face meeting, no sale. The man's jaw tightened. You're making this difficult, Mr. Cross. I'm making this safe. For both of us. Cross opened the vault door. Inside, Victoria glimpsed metal containers, the kind used for transporting radioactive material. Her heart pounded. This was it. This was the evidence. She needed to photograph it. She pulled out her phone, angled it through the grate. And a hand clamped over her mouth. She tried to scream, but the grip was iron. She was pulled backward, dragged through the vent shaft. Her phone clattering to the metal floor. She fought, but her attacker was too strong. They hauled her out of the vent and into the lab, slamming her against the wall. It was Kira. What the hell were you thinking? Kira hissed, her face inches from Victoria's. Do you have any idea what he'll do if he finds you spying on him? Victoria's breath came in gasps. Save it. I don't want to hear your lies. Kira released her pacing. I told you to be careful. I told you to finish your work and leave. But you couldn't help yourself, could you? I'm not? Yes, you are. You're exactly what I thought you were. Intelligence. CIA? FBI. Doesn't matter. You're here to gather evidence. Kira stopped pacing, her eyes blazing. And you just signed your own death warrant. Then why are you helping me? The question hung in the air. Kira's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering beneath the hard exterior. Because I know what it's like to be trapped. I've worked for Cross for 8 years. I've done things I can't take back. Things that keep me awake at night. I'm tired, Catherine. I'm so goddamn tired. Then help me stop him. I can't. If I betray him, I'm dead. You're already dead, Victoria said quietly. We both are. Unless we do something. Kira stared at her for a long moment. Then she pulled a small USB drive from her pocket. This contains Cross's encrypted files, transaction records, buyer lists, communication logs, everything you need to bring him down. Victoria took the drive. Why are you giving this to me? Because you're brave enough to try. And because maybe, if I help you, I can finally sleep at night. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. He's coming, Kira whispered. Hide the drive. Act natural. The door opened. Cross stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Catherine, he said. I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all. I was just taking a break. His eyes moved to the open vent grate on the wall. Then to Victoria. Then to Kira. Interesting, he said slowly. Tell me, Catherine. Have you ever heard the story of Prometheus? The Greek myth? Exactly. Prometheus stole fire from the gods. He wanted to help humanity. Noble intentions. But the gods didn't see it that way. They saw it as betrayal. And they punished him for eternity. He stepped closer. I wonder, Catherine, are you a thief? Or are you just curious? Victoria's hand moved to the watch. But before she could press the beacon, Kira stepped forward. It was me, Kira said. Cross turned to her. What? I opened the vent. I was checking the ventilation system. Security protocols? Is that so? Yes, sir. Cross studied Kira for a long, terrifying moment. Then he smiled. Very well. Carry on. He left. The door closed. Victoria and Kira stood in silence. Both understanding what had just happened. Kira had just lied to protect her. And if Cross ever found out, they would both die. Victoria couldn't sleep that night. She lay in her cabin, the USB drive hidden beneath the mattress, her mind racing through everything she'd seen and heard. Cross was selling uranium to a buyer who valued anonymity. The transaction was worth $600 million, and it was happening in Istanbul, just as Reeves had predicted. She had the evidence. She could trigger the beacon, extract herself, and let the international task force move in. But something didn't add up. Why had Kira helped her? A former Russian intelligence operative, a woman who'd killed for Cross, suddenly growing a conscience? It felt too convenient. Too clean. Victoria got out of bed and walked to her laptop, secure device provided by the agency. She plugged in the USB drive and opened the files. They were extensive. Transaction records dating back 5 years. Buyer lists that included names she recognized. Warlords, dictators, terrorist financiers. Communication logs that detailed shipments, prices, and delivery methods. It was damning evidence. But as she scrolled deeper, she found something that made her blood run cold. A file labeled Project Nightingale. She opened it. Inside were surveillance photos. Of her, not Catherine Wells. Victoria Hayes. Photos of her entering her apartment in Manhattan. Photos of her meeting with Reeves. Photos of her boarding the private jet, and a document titled Asset Identification and Neutralization. Her hands trembled as she read. Subject: Victoria Hayes. Cover identity: Catherine Wells. Agency affiliation: unknown. Suspected CIA or private intelligence contractor. Mission objective: infiltrate Yacht and gather evidence of weapons trafficking. Recommendation: maintain cover. Allow asset to collect evidence. Eliminate upon extraction. She felt the world tilt. Cross knew. He'd known from the beginning. The entire operation, the art restoration, the vault, the dinner conversations, it was all theater. Even playing her. And Kira? Kira hadn't helped her out of guilt. Kira was part of the trap. The USB drive wasn't evidence. It was bait. And the moment Victoria tried to leave with it, Cross would eliminate her. She yanked the drive from the laptop, her heart hammering. She needed to warn Reeves. She needed to get off this yacht. Now, she grabbed the watch, pressed the beacon. Nothing happened. She pressed again. And again. The device was dead. She looked at the screen. A message flashed. Signal jammed. Cross had disabled it. She was trapped. A knock at the door made her jump. Catherine? Kira's voice. Mr. Cross wants to see you. Now. Victoria's mind raced. She couldn't run. She couldn't call for help. She was alone on a yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean, with a man who wanted her dead. But she wasn't going to die without a fight. She grabbed the scissors. From her restoration kit, sharp, heavy. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. She tucked them into the back of her jeans, then opened the door. Kira stood in the corridor, her expression unreadable. This way. They walked in silence through the yacht's corridors. Victoria memorized every turn, every exit, every possible escape route. But there were none. They were miles from shore. The only way off this yacht was by helicopter or tender. They reached the upper deck, the same gallery where Victoria had first met Cross. He stood in front of the Vermeer, his back to her. Victoria Hayes, he said without turning. Not Catherine Wells, not an art restorer. A spy. She said nothing. He turned. His smile was gone. In its place was something colder, emptier. I've known who you were since before you boarded. Your handler, Marcus Reeves, he's been on my payroll for 2 years. Every piece of intelligence you sent him, he sent it to me. Victoria felt the ground shift beneath her. The uranium sale, the vault, the USB drive, all of it was designed to expose you. To see how deep the agency's infiltration went. He walked closer. And now I know. You were working alone. No backup, no secondary team. Just you. If you're going to kill me, Victoria said quietly, just do it. Kill you? Cross laughed. No, that would be wasteful. You're skilled. intelligent, resourceful. I don't want you dead, Victoria. I want you working for me." She stared at him. "You're insane. Am I? You've spent 6 years pretending to be someone's wife. You've lied for a living. You've betrayed people for your government. How is what I do any different? I don't sell weapons to terrorists. No, you just gather intelligence for a government that does." He tilted his head. "Tell me, Victoria, how many drone strikes were authorized based on intelligence from people like you? How many civilians died because you were good at your job?" She wanted to argue, but the words caught in her throat because he wasn't entirely wrong. "I'm offering you a choice," Cross said. "Work for me. Use your skills in a place where honesty is valued, where loyalty is rewarded. Or refuse and spend the rest of your very short life in a cage. That's not a choice. It's the only choice you have." He gestured to Kira. "Take her to the lower deck. Give her 24 hours to decide." Kira grabbed Victoria's arm, pulling her toward the door. But as they passed Cross, Victoria stopped. "I have one question," she said. "Ask. If Reeves was working for you, why did he send me at all? Why not just kill me?" Cross smiled. "Because I wanted to see if you'd break. And you didn't. That's rare. That's valuable." He turned back to the Vermeer. "You have 24 hours, Victoria. Choose wisely." The cell was small, bare, and locked from the outside. Victoria sat on the narrow cot, her mind working through every possible escape scenario. But there were no windows, no vents large enough to crawl through, no weapons. She was trapped. Hours passed. She didn't know how many. Without a watch or phone, time became meaningless. Then the door opened. "No, I'm here to tell you the truth." Kira leaned back. "I wasn't lying when I said I was tired. I am. I've killed 17 people for Cross. Some of them deserved it. Most of them didn't, and I can't do it anymore." Victoria studied her. "Then why do you stay?" "Because there's no way out. Cross owns me. He knows things about my past, things I did when I worked for Russian intelligence. If I leave, if I betray him, he'll release that information. And I'll spend the rest of my life in a prison cell. Or worse. So you're a prisoner too. We all are. The crew, the staff, even the buyers. Everyone who gets close to Cross becomes trapped." Kira paused. "But you're different. You came here voluntarily. You had a way out and you didn't take it. That means you're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Maybe both." Kira almost smiled. Then her expression darkened. "Victoria, I need to tell you something. The uranium sale? It's not happening in Istanbul." Victoria sat up. "What?" Cross lied. "The sale is happening tomorrow. Here, on this yacht. The buyer is flying in at dawn. And once the transaction is complete, Cross is going to kill everyone involved. The buyer, his security team, anyone who could testify against him. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm done being complicit. I can't stop Cross. I can't save those people. But maybe you can. I'm locked in a cell. I don't have a weapon. I don't have a way to call for help." "You have me," Kira said. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small handgun. "This is a Sig Sauer P365, 9 rounds. Safety is here. Point and shoot." Victoria took the gun. It was cold, heavier than she expected. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone has to." Kira stood. "The buyer arrives at 6 GM Cross. We'll meet him in the main salon. That's when you move. Get to the helicopter pad. I've disabled the security cameras along the route. You'll have 10 minutes before anyone notices you're gone. What about you? I'll create a distraction. Keep Cross occupied. He'll know you helped me. I know." Victoria looked at the gun in her hands. Then at Kira. "You'll die. Better to die doing the right thing than to live as a coward. For the first time, Victoria saw Kira not as an enemy, but as someone who'd been broken by the same system she'd served. "Come with me," Victoria said. "We'll both get out." Kira shook her head. "I'm too far gone. But you? You still have a chance." She moved to the door. 6 a.m., Victoria. "Don't waste it." She left. Locking the door behind her, Victoria sat alone, the gun in her hands, and realized something profound. She'd spent 6 years pretending to be someone else, living a lie, believing she was doing the right thing. But Kira, who'd killed 17 people, who'd spent years as Cross's weapon, was the one who'd chosen courage. And that meant there was still hope, not just for Victoria, but for anyone willing to fight for it. Dawn broke over the Mediterranean. Victoria stood in the corridor outside the cell, the gun tucked into her waistband. Kira had unlocked the door at 5:30, exactly as promised. The yacht was eerily quiet. Most of the crew was still asleep. Security was minimal. Cross had cleared the staff for the sail, wanting as few witnesses as possible. Victoria moved through the corridors, retracing the path she'd memorized. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. She'd trained for moments like this. She just never thought she'd be doing it alone. She reached the main deck. Through a window, she saw a helicopter descending toward the landing pad. The buyer. She needed to move fast. She crept toward the salon, staying low, using the shadows. Through the glass doors, she could see Cross. He stood at the head of a long table, flanked by 2 armed guards. Across from him sat a man in traditional Middle Eastern dress, his face obscured by a keffiyeh. On the table between them sat the metal containers. The uranium. Victoria pulled out her phone, one last desperate attempt. But the signal jammer was still active. No calls. No messages. She was on her own. She checked the gun. 9 rounds. 2 guards. Plus Cross. Plus the buyer's security team, which was likely waiting outside. Terrible odds. Then she heard it. A massive explosion from the lower deck. The yacht lurched violently. Alarms blared. The guards rushed toward the door, leaving Cross and the buyer momentarily alone. Kira. She'd created the distraction. Victoria moved. She burst through the salon doors, gun raised. "Don't move." Cross turned, his expression shifting from shock to cold calculation. Victoria. How resourceful. The buyer stood, reaching for something. "Hands up." She barked. "Both of you." Cross raised his hands slowly, that infuriating smile returning. "You're going to shoot me? Here, in the middle of the Mediterranean? You'll never make it off this yacht alive." "Maybe not. But at least I'll stop you. Will you?" He gestured to the containers. "Go ahead. Take them. Call your agency. Let them know you stopped the sale. And then what? You think this is the only uranium on the black market? You think I'm the only broker? It's a start. It's a drop in the ocean," Cross said. "You're a fool, Victoria. You could have had everything. Power, wealth, freedom. Instead, you chose this. I chose to stop you. Then do it." She aimed the gun at his chest. Her finger hovered over the trigger. 1 shot. That's all it would take. But she hesitated. Because killing him wouldn't stop the sale. It wouldn't stop the next broker, the next buyer, the next weapon from reaching the wrong hands. All it would do was make her a killer. In that moment, she realized something. Cross was right. She couldn't win. Not this way. But she could survive. She lowered the gun. "I'm leaving. You're going to let me walk to the helicopter. And you're not going to follow." Cross laughed. "And why would I do that?" "Because I planted a dead man switch. If I don't disable it in the next 10 minutes, every file on that USB drive, the real files, gets uploaded to every intelligence agency in the world. Your buyer lists, Your transaction records. Your personal communications. Everything. It was a bluff. But Cross didn't know that. His smile faltered. You're lying, am I? She backed toward the door. 10 minutes, Cross. You'll find out. She ran, down the corridor, up the stairs, toward the helicopter pad. Behind her, she heard shouting. Guards! Footsteps! She burst onto the pad. The helicopter was still there, rotor spinning. But Kira stood between her and the aircraft. Blood soaked Kira's shirt. She'd been shot. Go, Kira gasped. I disabled the pilot. You'll have to fly it yourself. I can't fly a helicopter. Then you'll die here. Kira shoved her toward the aircraft. Go! Victoria climbed inside. The controls were unfamiliar, terrifying. She'd had one lesson years ago, part of her training, but she'd never flown solo. She didn't have a choice. She pulled the collective, felt the helicopter lift. The yacht fell away beneath her. Behind her, she saw Cross and his guards rush onto the pad. They raised their weapons, but she was already gone, soaring over the azure water, Monaco glittering in the distance. She didn't look back. 3 months later, Victoria sat in a quiet cafe in Vienna. She wore glasses, her hair dyed auburn, her name now Emma Larson. Another identity, another life. The uranium sale had been stopped. Cross had been arrested not because of her, but because the buyer had been an undercover Interpol agent. The entire operation had been a sting. Kira hadn't survived. She'd died on the helicopter pad, bleeding out before help arrived. But she'd saved Victoria's life. And in the end, that was what mattered. Victoria sipped her coffee, watching people pass by. Normal people, living normal lives. She envied them, but she also knew she could never be one of them. She'd spent too long in the shadows, too long lying, too long pretending. But Kira had taught her something. Courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about choosing to do the right thing, even when it cost everything. And maybe, Victoria thought, that was enough. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. New assignment. Are you ready? She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she typed back, yes, because this was who she was. Not a wife, not a curator, not a spy. Just someone trying to do the right thing in a world full of wrong choices. And that, she realized, was the only truth that mattered. True strength isn't found in power, wealth, or perfection. It's found in the courage to stand up for what's right, even when the cost is everything you have. The greatest battles aren't fought with weapons, but with the choice to remain human in a world that rewards cruelty.